Commander Elias Ward opened his eyes slowly. The first thing he noticed was silence. Not the normal silence of an empty room, but the heavy kind that pressed down on the chest, making every breath sound too loud. He sat up, his back stiff from the cold metal floor, and looked around. The chamber was circular, made of smooth silver walls that curved upward into a high dome. Strange glowing lines moved along the surface, shifting in patterns that almost looked alive. There were no doors, no windows, no sign of how he had arrived. Only one thought came to his mind. This is not Earth. Elias pushed himself onto his feet, brushing dust from his uniform. He was a soldier and an explorer, trained for unexpected missions. But this was different. He remembered flying on a research vessel near the edge of the Orion sector. A flash of light, alarm screaming, and then nothing. Now he was here. His eyes caught movement across the chamber. A figure stood in the shadows, tall and graceful. As she stepped into the glow of the wall lines, Elias froze. She was not human. The alien woman was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly like polished stone, a soft lavender hue that shifted when she moved. Long silver hair fell down her back, and a crown-like circlet of living crystal rested on her brow. Her eyes glowed faint blue, filled with both pride and unease. She wore flowing armor of white and gold, regal yet light, like it was made for someone who commanded respect. Elias felt his hand instinctively reach for his weapon, but it wasn't there. He was unarmed. The alien tilted her head, studying him with equal suspicion. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft yet commanding, echoing slightly in the chamber. "You are human." The words startled him. She spoke in flawless standard, the universal tongue. Elias straightened his posture. "And you're not." The alien's lips curved, not quite into a smile. "I am Serenia of the Thrillian Empire, first daughter of the Crystal Throne, and you are my trial." Before Elias could ask what she meant, the chamber vibrated. The glowing lines along the walls pulsed brighter, and a deep voice filled the air, neither male nor female, but something mechanical. Trial of unity, commencing. Two beings, one chamber. One choice. Survive together, or perish alone. Elias clenched his jaw. It was an AI. The room itself was alive, or at least controlled by some ancient system. He looked at Serenia, who didn't appear surprised. Instead, her expression was tight, as though she already knew what was happening. "What is this place?" he demanded. Serenia's glowing eyes narrowed. "The Chamber of Trials, a sacred machine built by my ancestors. It is where rulers prove themselves worthy of command, but never has it summoned an outsider." Elias folded his arms. "Then why me?" "That," she said softly, "is what we are about to discover." The chamber shifted again. The floor beneath them rippled like water before hardening back into metal. The walls stretched higher, the glow changing from silver to deep crimson. From above, thin beams of light scanned both of them, humming with energy. Elias raised his arms defensively, but the beams passed over him harmlessly. The voice returned. "Trial 1, trust. The chamber shall remain sealed until unity is proven. You cannot escape alone. You cannot succeed apart." Elias exhaled sharply. "So it wants us to work together." Serenia looked at him with open distrust. "Humans are reckless, violent. You build weapons faster than you build peace. Why would the chamber choose you?" Elias shrugged. "Maybe it thinks you need someone reckless." For a moment they stared at each other in silence. Two beings from different worlds, trapped with no way out. Elias studied her carefully. She carried herself like royalty, every movement precise, every word measured. But there was something else in her eyes, something that flickered when the chamber had spoken. Fear. He broke the silence first. "All right, princess, let's figure out what this chamber wants. Together." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She clearly disliked the idea, but she gave a slow nod. For now. The chamber's tests began almost immediately. First, a wall of energy rose between them, cutting the chamber in half. The glowing AI voice spoke again. To proceed, one must hold the burden while the other finds the path. If either fails, both fail. On Elias's side, a massive weight descended from the ceiling, pressing down onto a platform. On Serenya's side, the floor lit up with dozens of shifting tiles, each glowing with different symbols. Elias placed his hands under the weight, grunting as it pressed down. I think this one's mine. Serenya's eyes flicked to him, then to the floor puzzle. She knelt gracefully, studying the glowing tiles. They form a sequence. If I choose wrong, the chamber resets. Sweat formed on Elias's forehead as he held the weight. Then don't choose wrong. She shot him a sharp look but said nothing. Carefully, she pressed one tile, then another. Each time she was correct, the weight on Elias's platform lessened slightly. Each time she hesitated, the weight grew heavier, his muscles strained. Serenya, any time now. She pressed the final tile and the weight vanished instantly. Elias fell to his knees, breathing hard. Serenya stood tall, expression calm, though Elias caught a flicker of relief in her eyes. You held longer than I expected. Perhaps humans are not as weak as they appear. Elias smirked between breaths. And you solve puzzles pretty fast for someone who looks like they should be sitting on a throne all day. For the first time, she almost smiled. The trial continued. They faced illusions, memories twisted by the chamber into nightmares. Elias saw his old squad, the ones who never returned from battle. Serenya saw shadows of her people, accusing her of weakness. But together they learned to break the illusions by grounding each other in truth. They faced shifting gravity, walls becoming floors, floors becoming ceilings. Elias used his soldier's training to calculate jumps and grips, guiding Serenya through the madness, while she used her strange energy aura to stabilize him when he almost slipped into the void. Through each test, distrust gave way to something else. Not trust, not yet, but recognition. Each began to see the other as more than an enemy. Elias noticed how Serenya's pride hid a heavy burden. Serenya noticed how Elias's reckless humor masked scars of loss. Finally, the chamber dimmed, the glow softening to pale blue. The AI spoke again. Trial 1. Complete. Unity forming. Continued to next stage. Elias slumped against the wall, exhausted. Serenya stood nearby, regal but clearly tired. They looked at each other, both realizing the same thing. This was only the beginning. The chamber's blue glow faded into a darker shade, almost like twilight. Commander Elias Ward leaned against the cold wall, trying to steady his breathing. Every muscle in his body ached from the weight he had carried during the first trial, but his mind was sharper now. He was beginning to understand the pattern. This chamber wasn't about strength alone. It was about balance, about forcing two very different beings to rely on each other. Across the room, Princess Serenya stood with her back straight, though Elias could tell she was tired too. Her glowing eyes flickered faintly, dimmer than before. She did not speak at first, only lifted her chin as if she refused to admit weakness. Elias broke the silence. So, trial 1 is done. Any idea what's next? Serenya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the center of the chamber, where a new pattern of glowing lines had begun to form on the floor. Her hands tightened into fists. I feared this, she whispered almost to herself. Elias frowned. You know something. She turned to him, and for the first time since they had met, there was no pride in her expression, only worry. The chamber has activated my burden. Elias raised an eyebrow. You're what? She hesitated, clearly unwilling to explain, but then the walls pulsed with light, and the mechanical voice of the chamber AI filled the room once more. Trial 2. Control. The air shall face the heat of ascension. The human must guide, or Both shall fall. Elias felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Heat of ascension? That doesn't sound friendly. Serenia closed her eyes. It is not. My people are bound to an ancient cycle. When the time comes, the energy of our bloodline awakens. It grants power, strength, speed, sight beyond sight. But it also brings chaos. Emotion overwhelms reason. Instinct crushes thought. Many heirs have failed in this trial, consumed by their own nature. She looked directly at Elias, her glowing eyes trembling slightly. The chamber is forcing my cycle to awaken early. Elias blinked. You're saying you're about to lose control? Yes, she admitted. And if I do, you will not survive. The chamber began to hum, low and deep. The floor's glowing lines wrapped around Serenia's feet, climbing like vines of light. She gasped, clutching her chest, as if her heart burned inside. Her silver hair shimmered brighter, and her lavender skin glowed faintly with energy. Elias stepped forward, alarmed. Hey, what's happening to you? Serenia sank to one knee, her breath uneven. The cycle. It begins, the AI's voice boomed again. Human, guide the air. Without your presence, she shall burn. Elias muttered under his breath. Great. No pressure at all. The chamber changed again. The walls dissolved into an endless horizon of light and shadow. It was no longer just a room. It had become a mental arena, a place shaped by Serenia's energy. Elias felt the floor beneath him shift, but when he looked down he saw not metal, but crystal ground glowing with strange runes. In the distance, Serenia stood, her body outlined in a blazing aura. Her crown of crystals glowed like fire and her eyes burned with raw power. She looked less like a princess and more like a storm-given form. But when she spoke, her voice cracked. Elias, stay back. I cannot hold it. Elias clenched his fists. If I stay back, we both fail. That AI made it clear. She shook her head violently, her hair whipping around her like silver flames. You do not understand. The heat makes me dangerous. If I strike out, then I'll take the hit. Elias interrupted firmly. But I'm not letting you lose yourself. Her energy flared in response to her rising emotion. The crystal, ground cracked beneath her feet, glowing with dangerous light. A shockwave burst from her body, throwing Elias back. He hit the ground hard, rolling to his side. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he pushed himself up. Damn it, princess, he muttered. You're not fighting me, you're fighting yourself. The trial became a battle of wills. Serenia's instincts lashed out in violent surges, pillars of light, bursts of sound that shook the ground, illusions of shadow beasts formed from her own fear. Elias dodged what he could, but when he couldn't, he stood his ground, shouting over the storm, Serenia, you're stronger than this. Each time her aura wavered slightly, as though his words reached the part of her that still remained in control. But then the energy would rise again, drowning her reason. At one point she charged at him, her hand glowing like a blade. Elias didn't move. He stood tall, staring directly into her blazing eyes. Do it, he said calmly. Strike me if that's who you are. The glowing blade stopped inches from his chest. Serenia's entire body trembled, her breathing ragged. Her eyes widened as she fought herself. I cannot, she whispered. The blade vanished, her hand shaking violently. Elias grabbed her wrist gently but firmly. Then hold on to that. The fact that you didn't means you're still in control. You just need something to focus on. So focus on me. Slowly, painfully, they began to fight the storm together. Every time Serenia's energy flared, Elias grounded her with steady words. He told her about Earth, about how soldiers endure fear by clinging to the smallest things, memories of family, laughter, with friends, the sound of rain on a roof, simple, human things. Serenia listened, her glowing eyes flickering between rage and calm. Each story pulled her back from the edge. At last, when she nearly collapsed from exhaustion, Elias caught her shoulders. Look at me. Breathe. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. For a long moment the chamber was silent. Then Serenya's aura dimmed, the wild energy drawing back into her body. The cracks in the ground sealed, the illusions faded, and the horizon of light slowly dissolved into the silver walls of the chamber once more. Serenya fell forward, her body weak, but Elias caught her before she hit the floor. She rested against him, trembling like a flame fighting to stay lit. The AI's voice filled the room again. Trial 2. Complete. Control achieved. Unity strengthening. Elias let out a long sigh of relief. Never thought I'd play babysitter to an alien. Princess going through, whatever that was. Serenya gave a weak laugh, surprising both of them. You risked your life for me, even when I told you not to. Yeah, Elias replied with a small smirk. That's kind of what humans do. Stubborn to the end. She lifted her head slightly, her glowing eyes softer now. Perhaps that is why the chamber chose you. The walls shifted again, forming new patterns. The chamber was preparing for the next trial. But as Elias lowered Serenya gently to sit against the wall, he realized something had changed between them. She was no longer just a proud alien princess, and he was no longer just a trapped human. They were beginning to trust each other, and in this strange ancient chamber, that trust might be the only thing keeping them alive. The chamber's walls brightened once more, filling the space with golden light. Commander Elias Ward sat on the floor, his back against the curved wall, while Princess Serenya rested nearby. Both were tired from the last trial, but neither dared to close their eyes for long. The chamber had no mercy, it would give them little rest before throwing the next challenge. Elias rubbed his stiff shoulder and glanced at the princess. She looked calmer now, the dangerous energy that had once consumed her body slowly fading back into stillness. Her glowing eyes were less fierce, but they still carried the weight of someone who had been close to losing everything. You holding up? Elias asked. Serenya lifted her head, her silver hair falling across her face. The heat of ascension has quieted thanks to you, but it is not gone. The chamber forced it early and I must fight to keep it under control. If I lose balance again. She paused, shaking her head. It would be dangerous for both of us. Elias gave her a crooked smile. Then good thing I'm here. I'm getting used to pulling you back from the edge. She studied him, her lips tightening as though she wanted to argue, but instead she lowered her gaze. You risk too much, human. You do not even know me. Yet you stand and fire for my sake. Why? Elias leaned his head against the wall and shrugged. Because if we don't stick together, we're both dead. Simple math. Before Serenya could reply, the chamber floor pulsed, and the deep mechanical voice returned. Trial 3. Instinct and reason. Face the beasts within. One fights with power, one fights with mind. Balance decides survival. Elias groaned. Great. Sounds like it's going to throw monsters at us this time. Serenya stood, her posture straightening again, pride returning to her voice. Then let them come. My bloodline was born to fight. Elias pushed himself up and cracked his knuckles. And I'll handle the thinking part. The floor split apart with a loud crack, and the chamber expanded. The walls pulled back until the silver room became a vast arena. The ground reshaped, itself into rocky terrain, jagged and uneven. Above them, the dome shifted into a sky filled with swirling storm clouds. From the shadows of the rocks came low growls. Elias turned slowly, scanning the terrain. Then he saw them, beasts. They looked like wolves made of stone, their bodies tall and heavy, with glowing red cracks running across their skin. Their eyes burned like fire, and their teeth were jagged crystal blades. There were 5 of them, circling in silence. Of course, Elias muttered. It couldn't be rabbits. Serenya stepped forward, her aura flaring around her. These are shadow-forged beasts. They are born from fear and instinct. They will come for me first. Stand back, Elias. But Elias shook his head. Not happening. The chamber said one of us fights with power, the other with mind. You're the blade, princess, I'll be the shield. Serenia frowned. But before she could protest, the beasts attacked. The first creature leapt, its jaws wide open. Serenia raised her hand, and a burst of light shot from her palm, striking it in midair. The beast shattered into pieces of stone that crumbled into dust. She turned quickly, striking down a second with a wave of glowing energy. But as she fought, Elias noticed something. Every time she used her power, the glow in her eyes flared dangerously bright, like a storm threatening to break free again. Careful, Elias shouted. You're pushing yourself too hard. Serenia ignored him, slashing through another beast with a blade of light. I was born for this, she cried, her voice shaking with both pride and strain. The fourth beast circled behind her, but Elias moved fast. He grabbed a broken shard of stone from the ground and swung it like a club, smashing it against the creature's legs. The beast stumbled, giving Serenia time to finish it with a strike. Elias dropped the shard, his chest heaving. You're strong, no doubt about it. But if you burn out, we're both dead. Use your head, not just your power. Her glowing eyes flicked toward him, filled with frustration. You would tell me how to fight? Yes, Elias snapped, standing his ground. Because I've seen what happens when people rely only on instinct. They lose control, and you... He pointed at her, breathing hard. You almost lost yourself in the last trial. You think that won't happen again if you keep throwing power around? For a moment, Serenia froze. The last beast roared, charging toward them both. Elias moved quickly, grabbing her arm and pulling her aside. The beast's jaws snapped shut, where they had just stood. Elias stumbled, almost falling, but he steadied himself. We need to work smarter. You hit hard, no doubt. But let me think. Let me guide. That's how we survive. Serenia looked at him, her pride clashing with reason. The glow in her eyes flickered, but then she nodded just once. Very well. Tell me what you see. Elias turned his gaze to the remaining beast. It circled slowly, its glowing cracks pulsing, like a heartbeat. He studied its movements carefully, then pointed to the rocks nearby. It's stronger on the front legs. See how it leans forward? That means if we force it to jump high, it'll stumble when it lands. Serenia followed his gaze. And then I strike? Elias nodded. Exactly, but wait for the right moment. The beast roared and leapt toward them. Elias shouted, Now! Serenia raised her hand, but instead of blasting it directly, she aimed at the ground beneath its landing spot. The stone shattered and the beast stumbled as it fell. In that split second, she struck with a focused blade of light, piercing through its core. The beast shattered into dust. The arena grew silent. Elias exhaled heavily, bending over to catch his breath. See? Instinct plus reason. That's the balance. Serenia stood tall, her aura dimming slightly, but her expression thoughtful. You are right. Alone, I might have lost myself again. But with your guidance, the strike was cleaner. Elias gave her a tired smile. Not bad, princess. Not bad at all. The chamber shifted again, the rocky terrain dissolving into smooth silver walls. The storm clouds vanished, replaced by the calm glow of the dome. The AI's voice echoed once more. Trial 3. Complete. Instinct tempered by reason. Unity deepens. Elias leaned against the wall, wiping sweat from his forehead. 3 trials down. How many more, you think? Serenia looked at the glowing lines forming on the floor again. The chamber is ancient. Some records speak of 5 trials, others of 7. But whatever remains, it will grow harder. Elias groaned. Figures. Nothing's ever easy. Serenia glanced at him, her expression softer now. You spoke of reason guiding instinct. Perhaps that is why you were chosen. Not just as my trial, but as my balance. Elias blinked at her words, then chuckled quietly. Balance, huh? That's one way of putting it. For the first time, Serenia smiled faintly. It wasn't prideful or forced. It was real. But the chamber was already humming again, preparing for the next stage. Both of them stood, side by side, ready for whatever awaited. Because now, for the first time, they weren't just surviving, they were learning to fight as one. The chamber grew quiet after the third trial, but the silence was heavy, as if the room itself was preparing for something far greater. Commander Elias Ward sat with his back to the wall, trying to slow his breathing. Every muscle in his body ached, but he could feel his instincts sharpening. The chamber was teaching him as much as it was testing him. Across the chamber, Princess Serenia stood with her eyes closed. Her silver hair shimmered faintly, her face pale from the strain of the last battles. She was strong, stronger than anyone Elias had ever seen, but even strength had limits, and he could tell hers was close. Elias rubbed his hands together and broke the silence. "We've survived 3 trials. That's got to mean something, right?" Serenia opened her eyes slowly. Her glowing blue gaze was softer than before, but full of weight. "The chamber saves the hardest for last. The true trial is always near the end." Elias sighed, leaning back. "Figures. Always has to get worse before it gets better." The floor pulsed, and the voice of the chamber AI returned. "Trial 4. Breaking point. The air shall be pushed beyond control. The human must choose, abandon or endure." Elias felt a chill run through him. Breaking point? That doesn't sound good at all. Serenia's face tightened. She whispered almost to herself, "This is the trial I feared." Before Elias could ask what she meant, the walls flared with blinding light. The chamber shook as if an earthquake had struck. The ground cracked beneath them, glowing with streams of energy. Elias struggled to stay on his feet, but Serenia fell to her knees, clutching her chest. Her body glowed brighter and brighter, the silver in her hair turning almost white, her lavender skin shining with dangerous energy. Her eyes widened, glowing like twin suns. "Elias," she gasped, her voice shaking. "I cannot hold it anymore. The cycle is consuming me." The chamber AI spoke again. "The air's control collapses. Human, decide." Elias clenched his fists. He knew exactly what the AI meant. If Serenia lost control completely, her unleashed power could destroy both of them. The easy answer would be to step back, to let her fail and save himself. But he already knew he wasn't going to do that. He ran toward her, even as the ground split around them. "I'm not leaving you, Princess." The chamber transformed. The walls vanished, replaced by a storming void of light and shadow. It felt like they were standing inside Serenia's mind, inside the chaos of her awakening. Cracks of energy shot across the ground, and massive waves of light surged upward like living fire. Serenia stood at the center, trembling. Her aura blazed wildly, tearing at the air. Her voice was full of anguish. "Go, Elias. If you stay, I will destroy you." But Elias didn't stop. He grabbed her shoulders, even though her aura burned against his skin like fire. He winced but held on tighter. "No. Listen to me. You're not alone in this. You don't have to fight it by yourself." Her eyes glowed fiercely, tears mixing with the light. "I cannot stop it. The chamber has forced me past my limits. I am becoming the storm." Elias shook his head, ignoring the pain. "Then let me be your anchor. You feel like you're drowning, but I'm right here. Hold on to me." She tried to push him away, but her strength was too wild to focus. A shockwave threw him back, slamming him into the cracked ground. His chest burned, his breath knocked out, but he pushed himself up again. "Damn it, Serenia," he coughed. "I've seen soldiers break under pressure. I've seen men give in to fear, but I've also seen them rise when someone believed in them. That's what I'm doing now. I believe in you." Serenia screamed, her aura exploding outward. Beams of light cut through the void, creating shapes, phantoms of her fears. Elias saw visions of her people, the Thrillian Council, their glowing eyes filled with disappointment. He heard their voices echo. "You are too weak. You are unfit to rule. You cannot control your own bloodline." Serenia fell to her knees, clutching her head. They are right, I am not worthy. Elias staggered to her side, grabbing her arms. No, that's not true. You've survived every trial so far. You faced beasts, illusions, and even yourself. You are still here, that means you're stronger than any of them. She shook her head, tears glowing on her cheeks. I cannot carry this burden. Elias pulled her close, ignoring the searing heat of her aura. Then don't carry it alone. Share it. That's what unity means, that's why we're both here. Her aura flared, but this time, instead of pushing him away, it hesitated. The glowing storm slowed slightly, as though his words pierced through the chaos. The chamber itself seemed to test his resolve. Suddenly, a towering figure rose from the void, a monstrous version of Serenia herself, made of pure light and fury. It roared, its voice shaking the ground. Elias looked at the real Serenia, who was trembling in fear. That's not you. That's the part of you that wants to break free. We're going to fight it together. She looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. Together? He nodded firmly. Together. The monstrous Serenia charged, its steps shaking the void. Elias stood his ground, pulling Serenia to her feet. Her aura blazed again, but this time it was steadier. She looked at him, then at the monster, and her trembling lessened. Elias shouted, "Focus your power with me. Don't fight the storm, control it." Serenia raised her hands, light swirling into her palms. Elias gritted his teeth and stepped forward with her. When the monster lunged, they struck together, her light guided by his words, his courage steadying her storm. The blast struck the monster, shattering it into shards of glowing energy that dissolved into the void. When the light faded, Serenia collapsed forward, but Elias caught her. She leaned against him, her body shaking, her aura finally quiet. Her glowing eyes dimmed back to their normal calm. The chamber AI's voice filled the silence. Trial 4. Complete. Breaking point overcome. Unity unbroken. Elias let out a long breath, his chest aching from the burns and strain. You almost scared me there, princess. Serenia lifted her head weakly, her voice soft but steady. You should have abandoned me. That is what anyone else would have done. Elias gave her a tired grin. Yeah, well, humans don't exactly have a habit of doing the smart thing. We're stubborn like that. Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. Stubborn and brave. He chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. The void dissolved and the chamber returned to its original silver form. The cracks in the ground sealed, the air calming once again. Elias helped Serenia sit against the wall, her strength slowly returning. For a moment, they sat in silence, the only sound their breathing. Then Serenia spoke softly. When I was a child, I was told that the Chamber of Trials chose its partners, carefully. It never brings two beings together by chance. Today, I understand why. Elias looked at her curiously. And why's that? She met his eyes, her expression serious but warm. Because it does not only test the air, it tests the bond. And our bond grows stronger with every trial. Elias leaned back, letting her words sink in. Then let's hope it's strong enough for the final one. The floor pulsed again, signaling the chamber was preparing the next stage. Elias and Serenia exchanged a glance. They were both exhausted, but now they carried something new. Trust, unshakable and real. Whatever the final trial was, they would face it side by side, not just as human and alien, but as partners. The chamber was silent again, but Elias Ward knew it was only the calm before the storm. The air inside the silver dome felt heavier now, as though the very walls were waiting to test them one final time. He sat with his back to the wall, his breath slow and steady but his eyes sharp. Across from him, Princess Serenia rested with her hands folded in her lap. Her glowing blue eyes were softer than before, no longer wild with uncontrolled power, but calm and focused. The trials had left her pale and weary, yet Elias could sense a new strength in her posture. Neither spoke for a while. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, it was full of understanding. They had already endured so much together. Finally, Elias broke the silence. 4 trials down. That usually means one more. You ready for this? Serena raised her head, her silver hair catching the soft light. I do not know what shape the last trial will take. The chamber is ancient, and its final test changes for each heir. But one truth is constant. Elias leaned forward. And, what's that? Her voice was steady. The final trial is always about choice. Before Elias could reply, the floor beneath them pulsed with blinding light. The deep, mechanical voice of the chamber AI echoed across the dome. Final trial. Unity or division. The bond forged shall be tested. Only one path leads to freedom. Choose wisely. The walls began to shift. The silver dome stretched outward, becoming a massive hall lined with crystal pillars. At the far end stood 2 glowing doors, each radiating powerful light. Between the doors floated a sphere of energy, humming with endless power. Elias stood, scanning the scene carefully. Well, this doesn't look ominous at all. Serena rose beside him, her expression unreadable. 2 doors, 1 sphere of power. The chamber is offering us a choice. The AI spoke again. One path grants freedom for the human, but traps the heir forever. One path grants freedom for the heir but ends the human's life. The third option, take the sphere, and both perish. Elias's eyes narrowed. So basically, it wants to see if we'll sacrifice each other. Serena's face darkened. Yes, it is the cruelest trial of all, the test of loyalty. For a long moment they stood in silence. The 2 doors glowed like promises, each one leading to survival, but only for one of them. The sphere between them hummed like a threat, daring them to choose wrong. Elias let out a long sigh. Well, that explains why they call this the breaking point, but honestly, I don't like any of these options. Serena looked at him, her voice heavy. Elias, if you choose your own survival, I will not blame you. You were dragged into this against your will. The chamber should never have taken you. My life is my burden, not yours. Elias raised an eyebrow at her. So you're telling me to walk out the door and leave you here forever? Not happening. Her eyes glowed faintly, sadness in their depths. If you choose the other path, I would live, but at the cost of your life. That would dishonor everything you have done. You have shown me trust, courage, and sacrifice. I will not allow your story to end that way. Elias folded his arms. Then what's left? Both of us dying together? Doesn't sound like a win to me. Serena lowered her gaze. Perhaps that is the lesson, that some bonds end in sacrifice. But Elias shook his head firmly. No, I don't buy it. This chamber has been trying to break us apart since the beginning. First it tested trust, then control, then instinct, then your breaking point. Every time it wanted us to fail, but we didn't. Why? Because we chose each other. That's the whole point, Princess. Unity. Her glowing eyes widened slightly, realization flickering in them. Unity. Elias pointed at the sphere of energy between the doors. That thing in the middle. The AI said if we take it, both of us perish. But maybe that's a trick. Maybe it wants to see if we're willing to risk everything, together instead of turning on each other. Serena hesitated. You think the true path is not either door but the sphere? Elias smirked. Wouldn't be the first time an ancient machine used reverse psychology. The sphere pulsed brighter as if hearing their words. The 2 doors glowed even stronger, tempting them to choose the easy way out. Elias stepped closer to Serena, his voice steady. We've come this far together. Every trial proved that we're stronger as a pair than as individuals. I say we take the risk. Together. Serena studied him for a long moment, searching his face. Then, slowly, she nodded. Together. They walked side by side toward the sphere. The energy crackled, growing louder as they approached, like thunder trapped inside glass. The closer they came, the more the air burned against their skin, as if warning them to turn back. Elias extended his hand. Serena hesitated only a second before placing hers on top of his. Their fingers tightened together. "Ready?" Elias asked. She gave a faint smile. "As I will ever be." Together they reached out and touched the sphere. The moment their hands touched it, the chamber exploded with light. A blinding wave surged outward, swallowing the entire hall. Elias felt his body pulled apart and reformed, as if he was falling. Through both fire and water at once, voices filled the void, echoes of every trial they had faced. Trust, control, instinct, breaking point. The AI's voice rose above them all. Final trial, passed, unity chosen, bond complete. The light faded. Elias opened his eyes and gasped. He was no longer in the silver chamber. He stood at the base of a massive crystal throne hall, surrounded by towering alien figures with glowing eyes, the Thrillian Council. Their faces were a mix of shock, awe, and disbelief. Beside him stood Serenia, her aura calm but radiant. She looked stronger than ever, her head held high. One of the counselors stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Impossible. No human has ever survived the Chamber of Trials." Serenia's voice rang clear through the hall. "Not only did he survive, he saved me. Again and again. Without him, I would have failed. The chamber itself has judged our unity, and it has found us worthy." The council murmured in disbelief. Elias glanced around, feeling more than a little out of place, but Serenia's confidence never wavered. She turned to face them fully, her voice carrying the weight of command. "From this day, humanity is no longer a race of outsiders. They are partners of the Thrillian Empire. This human, Elias Ward, proved what none of you believed, that unity between our kinds is not only possible, it is powerful." The hall fell silent. Slowly, the counselors bowed their heads in respect. Later, when the hall was empty, Elias stood with Serenia at the base of the throne. He rubbed the back of his neck. "You sure know how to make a speech, Princess." Serenia turned to him, her expression softer now. "You gave me the strength to make it. Every trial, you were my balance. My storm would have destroyed me without you." Elias gave her a small grin. "And I would have been crushed a dozen times without you blasting monsters to pieces. So I guess we're even." Her glowing eyes met his. "Not even. Partners?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yeah, partners." For a long moment they stood in silence, not as prisoner and princess, not as alien and human, but as equals who had faced fire and survived. Whatever came next, alliances, councils, new challenges, they both knew one truth. Their bond had been forged in the chamber and nothing could break it.